Hello, and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we have my good friend and fellow hacker, Angelina Tsuboi, on to hack with us today. Did I get it right that time? Please tell me I did.
Almost. We're getting there, Kody.
Okay, I'm practicing every stream. So,
Hi,
yeah,
everybody.
thank you for coming on again. I know last time we talked a little bit about drone hacking, and we were talking about how you're kind of obsessed with hacking just about anything that flies. So thank you for coming back, because I know a lot of people had great questions, and we actually kind of ran out of time at the end. So by starting late, perhaps the people that were on the last stream and were disappointed that they were just finding out the last moment, maybe they'll be on this one. So we can at least try. And of course, hello to everybody in the chat. I see James is here. Sorry, we're running a little late today, but no worries. Primarily, it seems as though I was unable to reschedule the live stream from my phone, so I had to go all the way back home in order to schedule it out. And by that time, I figured I should just schedule it out an hour to make sure we had time. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started today. Yeah, so let's start with something that I kind of wanted to show off. Angelina, you and I were talking last night about DEF CON, and we were talking about how cool it would be to do a game involving the Nugget we've been working on, but expanding it to use infrared and be able to play like a game at DEF CON. So in the course of that discussion, I wanted to see, like, is it possible to just plug something into the back of the Nugget and then control it with, remote control? Like, obviously, one of the coolest features of the Flipper is the ability to press a button and have it like affect something across the room that presumably you might not supposed to be affecting. So I wanted to see, like, if I'm a beginner and I want to use infrared for something like prototyping a little game or just seeing how things work, like how easy would it be to do that? So if anybody's interested, I went ahead and let me pull up my screen. Found this really excellent article on CircuitPython code. This is the reason why I love CircuitPython. I can basically just copy this in, change two things, and then, with Python, be able to start decoding certain types of IR signals. And this was just enough for me to be able to write a prototype in CircuitPython that allows me to actually in real time read read over serial IR codes. So this is what I've done. I now have this plugged in. I have I'll switch away from my screen for 1 second. I have this Nugget. You can sort of see it. That has an IR receiver facing towards me, and it's plugged in with kind of a janky wire because I kind of ran out of enough pins on this. It wasn't the right order. So what I'm trying to do is have an infrared code on this. Let me try it. Be received and change the color of the pixel. So trying a couple, let's see. So the other thing that's interesting, this is an NEC. Oh, there we go. This is an NEC controller that I have cloned with the Flipper. And the Adafruit guide was specifically for this brand. And I was able to basically look up on the Flipper the correct type of remote that this Adafruit tutorial was calling for. So I feel like you would otherwise have to like get one off eBay or like do something kind of annoying to get it. But I was able to get it. So when I hit it with different IR codes, it changes the NeoPixel on the front.
That's very nifty. How long did that take you, Kody?
Literally 5 to 10 minutes. Like the actual CircuitPython code here that was available from Adafruit made it so simple that I was able to take some of the existing classifications, just copy and paste all of the IR codes I was receiving into the loop that kind of looks for that. And then, of course, I had to do a try except because I found that a lot of the time, if it received an infrared code incorrectly, it would just crash. So, of course, I did my typical try except an error message here to make sure that if there was an error, it would just continue instead of crashing the whole program. So actually, can I enlarge this? Will it just do it? Yes. Okay, cool. So yeah, overall, this is like 44 lines of code that I very, very little edited in order to make this work. I needed to change the IO for which pin was connected to the receiver. And then after that, this Adafruit code was already receiving and kind of like doing different actions based on which code it read. So it wasn't very hard to update my code, do a little try except to make sure that it didn't crash anymore, and then make it so I could change it to a different NeoPixel color, just in case. I noticed that sometimes it seems to receive like either stray voltages or whatever else and output like random codes, which is a little odd. They always show up as an error though, so it's not getting confused that it thinks it's something valid. It would just normally crash this example code that CircuitPython made. So had to do a little bit of try and accept there, but I did find that it was really easy to use some of the examples for CircuitPython in order to make my own receiver and then turn my USB nugget into an IR receiver so I could affect it with remote control. So I could cause it to do, for example, bad USB payloads if I wanted to, like by like hitting
Mhm.
it with a IR receiver, or I could just change the color of the NeoPixel or turn it on and off. It's all pretty cool. So if anybody's interested in just like how cool microcontrollers with Python have gotten, this was a really fun and very short project to try out a little bit of IR. So the next thing I'm going to do is turn this into an IR blaster and see if I can use it to turn off TVs. But that was my little project that I worked on after our conversation earlier last night. So so here's one very relevant question that I love to answer. Can you break down the difference between CircuitPython versus regular Python for those who are new to coding? Yes, and I would love to do that. So CircuitPython is a programming language. It's basically like a Python wrapper around C for microcontrollers. So it brings a lot of the same different features you would expect from Python into the microcontroller environment. And one of the most important thing is code that is interpreted. So that means I can use an editor like Moo editor to write honestly very sloppy code. I am not doing a very good job here when it comes to like minding my P's and Q's, hitting all the conventions. And unless I absolutely just like mangle things, Python is generally a pretty flexible and forgiving language. It really allows me to like make prototypes very quickly. So you don't need to compile stuff. It's much faster. For example, when I change something here, if I were to change a value, now it's broken. I hit save, the microcontroller reboots, and then boom, the code is running. As simple as that. The big difference between that and like a language, oh, it was the same value, whatever. Um, the big difference between a compiled language and then an interpreted language like this is if I was in Arduino IDE, I would need to compile this and upload it to the microcontroller each time. That certainly saves space, but frankly, it's so easy to prototype stuff when it comes to basic features that CircuitPython is a really great way to go. Now, there's another language called MicroPython, and MicroPython is different because it's an open source project. CircuitPython is maintained by Adafruit, and it has certain conventions. Like, for example, CircuitPython devices will have the ability to mount themselves as a USB drive, which makes it very, very easy to work with them for beginners. MicroPython devices have no sort of like limitations on the way that they can roll out features. And there's a lot of MicroPython implementations that are, in my opinion, much more complicated to use for a beginner than CircuitPython. So I tend to direct people towards CircuitPython, even though there's a lot more guardrails on it, and it might have certain features that people want unavailable because they kind of make those choices for you to like put guardrails on it. But I would say MicroPython is fascinating because it runs on, for example, the ESP8266 and other boards where CircuitPython doesn't run. And it's a great alternative, even though the convention is slightly different and some of the documentation is absolutely ancient. So the difference between both of those languages and regular Python is you can import any library into regular Python. You can write your own library, and it's very easy to do that. MicroPython and CircuitPython require you to import libraries either by dragging and dropping or by using UPIP in MicroPython, which will actually go and fetch them for you and install it, which is honestly so cool to have on a microcontroller. But yeah, like you just can't expect to use, like for example, Scapy is not a thing on MicroPython or CircuitPython. There's lots of libraries that are not a thing. So if you are really dependent on certain libraries in Python, you're going to find that it just might not be there in CircuitPython or MicroPython, and it might not be that easy to port them, and they might never be ported. So just realize that it's a much, 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 much pared down version of Python, but there's still lots of things that are useful, and there's great documentation around both projects. Love getting that question because Python on microcontrollers is a big deal. It's super fun. Lots of people are learning to do it. It's like especially popular amongst like cosplayers and like other people that want to make like blinky things that are like reactive or like change stuff, but also amongst hackers who want to make hacking tools or like us that want to do like demonstrations and stuff based on these microcontrollers. Um, Let's see. Yeah, code that us mortals can read and write. Yeah, I feel like it's so accessible to everyone that frankly, CircuitPython is my go-to language for recommending people make their first prototype in if they maybe know a little bit of Python or they're just not experienced with a compiled language. Um, haven't been present for Live in the Wild. Well, let's forestall the next question, which is this live? And just acknowledge, yes, I see your comment. This is live. And thank you for joining us. Cool. I'm glad you like the explanation. I really like the people at CircuitPython. So if you're interested in CircuitPython, check out some of the boards that they offer. And also our boards, specifically the USB Nugget, support CircuitPython as well. And it's a great prototyping board, which is why I'm using it for all sorts of stuff. So you can always head over to Retia, retia.io, if you want to grab one of our CircuitPython boards that I'm using for this demonstration, because frankly, it's a lot of fun to be able to do both offensive stuff and then work on some of these more maker style projects like the CircuitPython ones. All right. So, of course, this is a live Q&A, so feel free to keep the questions coming in. But I also just want to give a shout out to our Discord community. We have set it up at nugget.lol, nugget.lol, and you are all welcome. If you want to leave a comment in here, I will be sure to go through and check out all the live Q&A questions. We've answered all the ones in here, I think. So I want to encourage anyone in our live chat to also consider jumping in the Discord. Because if you come up with a question in the middle of the night and you want to see it answered on our next stream, then this is a place you can do that. So yeah, thank you to everyone who has been active in our Discord server. Angelina, how are you feeling about that drone stuff? Do you need a little more?
I'm able to present it now.
Okay. Cool. So Angelina and I were talking about a number of different things. Actually, if you want, Angelina, we could also try out the nugget.dev site.
Oh, let's do the nugget.dev site first.
Okay, cool. So for those of you who do not know, the Nugget comes with a website called nugget.dev, and it is a really, in my opinion, polished and rapidly evolving way to use it that's super easy and makes the entire experience way more straightforward than using a microcontroller typically is. The only exception I would say is like projects like WLED that just have exceptional infrastructure laid out to make them like so easy to use have been kind of an inspiration for trying to find ways to make it easier and easier for people with a Nugget to plug it in and start using it. So let's see, what do I got here? I have a micro USB cable, and I believe this is a Nugget right here. I'm going to unplug my CircuitPython Nugget for now. I'm going to plug in my Wi-Fi Nugget. And for anybody who is unfamiliar with what that is, I'll show off what it is I'm plugging in very shortly. Let's see. So this is Firefox. I don't want that. I'm going to need Chrome. So one thing to know about this process is that Firefox still doesn't support web serial, which is amazing to me. So if you're going to do this experience, you need to be on Chrome, Edge, Safari, and then there's like 4 or 5 other ones that are all based on Chrome. But yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at what Angelina has done here. First, if you don't know what a Nugget is, you can always click on Buy a Nugget and go and see the various Nugget boards. We've got the Wi-Fi Nugget and the USB Nugget. And one thing to mention, we found a Nugget scam site. So if you are seeing other websites that are selling the Nugget and they have, like, for example, the exact same photos as our website, please do not buy it. I'm hearing that like people are not receiving their orders, and that also that website is claiming to be like the original developers of the Flipper Zero. Like if you click on, I'm not going to shout out the domain of the website. I'll just say if you're searching for our products online and you find any other websites that claim to be the Flipper developer team, for example, do not buy from them. It's interesting to have someone actually like targeting our customers for the first time. But yes, there are now websites out there selling fake nuggets that will just take your credit card information and not give you a nugget. So be wary of that sort of thing. But all right,
yeah,
back
I
to you,
looked at the
Angelina.
site myself too, and I think just general advice, like use common sense. Like the scam site, I took a look at it too. Like it looks sketchy. So whenever you're like buying something in general, just make sure you give it another like go around before you purchase something, because there are scam sites out there.
Yes, and there's definitely signs. It was not a mystery that this website was scamming, because for example, it was claiming to sell Flipper Zeros at the exact same price that the like Flipper Zero team themselves sell it for. Their About Us page was just a picture of the Flipper Zero team and like a copy of all the text on the Flipper Zero website. They basically just took the text and photos from my website and then the text and photos from Flipper Zero's website and mashed them together into one scammy website that up until 2019 was like an abandoned blog. So it was interesting to see, like on the Wayback Machine, that at some point someone looks like they seized control of this domain, or maybe had it just lurking for a while, and then turned it into like a scam website that is going after Flipper customers and is going after our Nugget customers as well. So beware fake nuggets and flippers. All right, so I've got a nugget. Let's say that I've successfully purchased a nugget not from a scammer. I've got it here and I want to start working with it. So I can click on connect my nugget. I can see that this is the correct one right here. I'll click on connect and boom, we've got the Wi-Fi nugget flasher. So just looking here, I can see that I can upload a custom binary. So if I have my own project that I want to upload here and I want to make it so, like my own like Arduino program that I wrote myself or my friend sent me, I can just click on this and upload a binary that's, whatever I want. But if I want to select a program, I love this. Angelina, you want to explain what you did here?
Yeah, so before we had like a single drop down where you can like select a binary, but only said the name of the binary and didn't really give a detailed explanation. So it was like kind of like a barrier to entry for beginners who wanted to like get involved with the project, because they were like what does like the nugget D author mean? They don't know. So I wanted to make that process a little bit simpler and more elucidated by making like a more comprehensive way of flashing binaries onto your nugget. So now there's like a entire pop-up that shows up, and then you can look through all the different binaries and find out like information about each one and what each program does.
In my mind, this makes the experience more like getting access to all the different projects that run on the Raspberry Pi, and that like ease of experience of like
Mhm.
flashing a new operating system to it. Like this just feels so much more like that than it does like flashing a random thing you had to download off GitHub. So yeah, I love this experience. I think it's really, really nice. I'm going to start out with the deauth detector. I'm going to, because I'm neurotic, I'm going to erase. It seems like erasing isn't necessary. I just sometimes like see like random ghost networks, that are like from the last time I flashed it that will still appear because I haven't overwritten that part of the code. Then I can click on program. I get this nice little progress bar, which I find back when we first made this website, I would just right mouse click and then like inspect and like watch like the progress in the console. So Angelina, I appreciate you making this visual so I don't have to do that anymore,
Yeah, of
just to guess how
course.
long it's going. All right, so this is going to finish flashing. Oh, I probably should have picked something that has serial output, huh? That would have been smarter. But whatever, we'll go ahead and test this. So this now should be ready to be unplugged and plugged back in, and then it should run the deauth detector program. Yeah, okay, cool. So it's got a big happy smiley face on it. It's now pleased. There's no deauthentication attacks happening. So we're good to go. I wonder, I actually don't remember if there's serial on this, so I guess we'll find out. So now that it's plugged back in, I can go to the serial terminal, click on Connect Nugget. And I don't think that there is serial output on this, but as you can see, the serial will then connect and I should be able to interact with this device if it had, like a serial accessible program. So if you're running like the deauthor or something like that, where it does have serial, this is where you could communicate back and forth with it. Yeah, so incredibly cool. So what if instead of a Wi-Fi nugget, I've got a USB nugget? I don't know the difference between the two. I'm not going to flip it over and try to find out. I just land on this website and I'm like, I want to use my nugget and I want to use it now. Well, let's see. I'm going to plug in. I'm going to plug in this one. I have to pick whether I want to possibly disrupt my audio or possibly disrupt my video while picking a USB port to plug this into. I went with video. All right, so I've got a USB nugget. I have it in flashing mode. And now I'm going to click on connect my nugget. Now, let's say that I have no idea like which is which. This is really cool. So now the options to flash it are different. You can see that there's other projects available here, because this is only projects that are available for the USB nugget, whereas we were looking at the Wi-Fi nugget before. So can you explain like how you managed to make it so that this website is smart and like knows the difference between the two things that I, as somebody using these, don't have to remember?
Yeah, so on a website, we mainly use JavaScript to run the backend. So when you connect your nugget, it notices it via the serial, and it's able to distinguish what chipset it has. So using that like metadata information that's sent over by the microcontroller via serial to the browser, I was able to write the code for it so it auto detects whether it's like an ESP32S2, which is the USB nuggets microcontroller, or the ESP826, that's the D1 Mini, which is what the Wi-Fi nugget runs off of.
So in the future, if we added the ESP32S3, which has Bluetooth, then if we wanted to add Bluetooth features, it would be pretty easy to then just plug that in and get, kind of power-ups that allow you to use Bluetooth as well, which would be really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and select the USB nugget. I'm going to click on program, and I'm going to let it do its thing. I didn't erase this time. I'm running it risky, but it's pretty much as simple as that. And after that, clicking on the serial terminal should give us a connection if it's written for a serial connection. I think the only one that actually is written for a serial connection is the packet monitor, but I don't want to immediately dox myself by showing the MAC address of every device around me, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, so this is, in my opinion, the easiest way to get like started with any of these projects on a microcontroller. I think it's so cool that like you don't need to know which product you have. You don't need to know like which project you want. You can kind of just like plug it in, go to the site, and then see which project you want to try. My goal, I think, in the future is to maybe add a link to documentation for each one, and maybe even like a little icon for each one, just so it's easy to remember if you're like like half asleep or just want to like click on the thing that looks familiar. But aside from that, like this is so simple and so easy to use. I'm really, really pleased with how it looks. So I'm gonna now unplug this and plug it back in to run the new software. And there I go. USB nugget is flashed and ready to go. And as simple as that, I can start doing all sorts of cool, bad USB stuff.
That's awesome.
Cool. All right. So Angelina, you ready for your demo?
Yes.
All right, go ahead and share your screen and I will stop sharing mine.
All right. Can you guys see? Share my. Do you guys see my screen?
Almost. There we go.
All right. So I made a post about this on Twitter recently. So what I've been working on recently in relation to my drone series that I'm doing as a part of my aerospace cybersecurity exploration I've been doing over the past few months is exploring the file outputs of drones after each flight. So this is a process called digital forensics, where there's a lot of like real life applications to this, where investigators, they find like a compromised drone. For example, like there's a lot of like contraband drop-offs at prisons that happens with drone related activity. So like you're able to compromise a drone, or like you find a drone on the ground and crash somewhere, and you don't know what to do with it. And that's what drone digital forensics is used for. It's used to gather information about the crime or whatever malicious activity that was caused by a drone, and find out relevant information about it. So this is like a little workstation setup I had. And currently I'm developing a program that lets you extract meaningful metadata about where a drone has been, its like relevant flight path, and just information about it in order to track down the criminal, and meaningful information that could help support a case that's caused by a drone. And this is more important because like as more airborne devices come into effect, because drones are becoming more widely accepted and used for a variety of use cases, there's obviously going to be bad actors out there that exploit the use cases of drones. For example, like contraband or like flying into invalid airspaces. So digital forensics, especially with like drone related activity, has become more popular, and I really wanted to like hop into that bandwagon and see what I can kind of do in that field. So I have a couple of demos for what you can do with drone related digital forensics. So when you find like a compromised DJI drone on the ground, for in my case, like a Mini 2, you can do a couple of things with it. You can gather information from the mobile application by plugging in like the compromised device into your computer, and then you can get access to a wide assortment of data, or you can use the data extracted from the SD card. So in my program, I used two images that I was able to extract from drones. This is an image I have from a personal drone of mine, and then this is an image I got from Kody's drone. And what my program is able to do is you can find a lot of meaningful like information about it just from an image. So if I run program here, you can see, I think I used this one here. It was able to extract a ton of data just from a single image captured by the drone. So you can see here, it got the GPS altitude, the latitude, the configuration of the gimbal on the drone, the bits per sample. So much you can just extract from these files you just find on the compromised drone. And you can also run the process on different file types as well. Another common file type that you can extract from drones is SRT files, and it stands for like subrip file format. And essentially, it's a file format that stores like metadata about the video footage from drones. So this is an SRT file I was able to obtain from a Mavic Air. And you can see it's kind of like, I don't know, convoluted. So what I did, and you can see here, like I have lots of different file formats from different types of drones, and they're all like different. Let me find another one. Like the Mavic Pro has a different, you can see here, like the Mavic Pro has a very different file format than the Mavic 2 or like the Mavic Air. So what I did was I used Golang, which is like the primary language I use for development for cybersecurity. And I created a program that parses these SRT files and gets data out of it. So I think it also included in it. Yeah, so here, SRT files are store information for each frame captured by the drone. And for each relevant frame, you can get the ISO number, the shutter speed, the FNUM, which are like all different like camera settings of the drone, which might come in use during like a digital forensics investigation. And there's also like different like online utilities you can use as well. I think I showed this off in the last stream.
So one question from the audience was, and it seems like it's probably yes, is this some sort of EXIF-like data?
Yes, yeah. So what yeah, so not for the SRT one, but for the JPEG, the one I used to obtain information about the information stored on Kody's drone, was using EXIF. So it runs an EXIF analysis, and it like spits out all the data that's included with an image.
By the way, is there any way to make the text a tiny bit bigger for anybody who's watching on mobile?
Oh yes, I'm so sorry.
No worries, no worries. It's something
I'm
I
just
forget
so used to
every
like
day.
having I'm just so used to like programming it like super tiny text, and I totally forget.
All my friends make fun of me. They're like, "Why is your text so huge? Like, why is your font just blown out?" It's like it's for the people on mobile. That's why.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So like another scan through the data, you can see there's a ton of information that's stored within this. Yeah, and like what I mentioned before, you can use like online tools with this as well. Another common one is like the DJI telemetry overlay. And they have like this really cool tool for the SRT viewer that isn't like specific frame data information. And you can like actually visualize the flight path. So I guess like the main tool, like the main purpose of the tool I'm making is that there's like so many different like drone utilities or like drone tooling systems out there, but they're all disparate, and like the ones that are cohesive and have a bunch of features charge you for it.
Hmm.
And I don't think that's fair, especially like if you're like a researcher and you don't have the money to like spend like, I think they were charging like $500, like $800, something insane, just for like a simple like digital forensics tool. Um, so yeah, just like making it more easier, and it's going to be open source. I'm currently developing it right now. I want to launch it by the end of this week, so I'll keep you guys updated on that on Twitter. Um, but yeah, so essentially it's going to be like the Swiss Army knife of like different drone forensics tools. There's so many different file formats. I think I showed just 2 today. There's like 20, which is insane. So yeah, be on the lookout for that later this week. But
So
that's what I wanted to show.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
let me give you a specific scenario, and now that you know all these tools, like see how you would like crack the case, because I think I have like
Okay.
how I might like catch it. But I'd like to see, now that you know everything that's available, like how you would try to catch it.
Right.
So let's say that
Yeah.
we have a drone that we think just dropped something in a restricted area, like a prison or something like that,
Yeah.
and the drone crashes. But it wasn't recording any footage. So there's no
Mhm.
record of like where exactly it dropped, but there are the standard log files and stuff that show like
Right.
information about like the gimbal, the motors, the altitude,
Right.
all that.
Yeah.
How would you try to identify if or where something was
Mhm.
dropped off based on, no video footage being recoverable from the drone?
Yeah, so I would do a couple of things depending on whether I'm able to compromise like the physical drone or not. If I am able to get access to the physical drone, I would extract the SD card from the drone itself and then get access to the flight logs, as you mentioned. DJI has like a really cohesive like text flight log kind of system, and then from there I would use my tool to run a text flight log parser on it, and then from that part, because of like how much information is condensed within those flight logs, you can use that data to extract like GPS coordinates and then map out those GPS coordinates to see like where it was heading. And it also includes like altitude as well, so you can like kind of like pinpoint um, where it was like dropping off the contraband or whatever payload it was trying to drop off. Another thing you can track is power level settings.
Hmm.
So, like looking for like deviations in the power level settings could indicate, like, let's say there's like a sharp spike in power. That means it must have like dropped off some kind of contraband or like some kind of payload. There's also one more like clever way you can kind of do it. I'm not sure if it is ADSB. There's like another like radar kind of system specifically for drones, and you can use like a service, an online service like I think it was Flight Safe, or there's like a lot of like different drone specific like ADSB kind of like radar systems that's available on the internet, and I would use that to like as a second source of information to figure out that case.
Wow. Yeah. So you hit every single one that I was thinking of, including some extra ones. I was thinking like, checking to see like if it loiters over any particular area, like for a long time, checking to see if there's any like suspicious gimbal movement. For example, like if there's any point at which
Right.
the gimbal pitches straight down and stays that way for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course the
Yeah.
power level, like looking to see if suddenly the drone has to correct for a change in balance, or a change
Right.
in weight, because all of a sudden it's dropped a projectile, or it's no longer operating at the same weight that it was
Right.
before. So a sudden like spike in altitude might indicate that maybe somebody had just dropped off a package and the drone was recovering from having its weight change. So wow, that's a lot. It seems like for people who are considering using drones, especially commercial drones for this sort of thing, like not only is the data potentially being transmitted off site, so it might be recoverable via a warrant or a subpoena to DJI, but it also is very, very easy to potentially pull that off of an SD card or the drone itself and examine the flight logs for any suspicious characteristics, indicating maybe having dropped off a forbidden package somewhere that it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Okay, James says it's a bit obvious if the drone drops altitude and hovers 20 feet over a prison yard, I think. Yes, that's true. But of course, there's sneaky ways of doing this as well. And I think that for somebody who's trying to be sneaky, or maybe doesn't really care exactly where it drops, just the fact that, having dropped things from a drone myself, I know, like you need to drop the gimbal down to see exactly where you're going to hit. you need to like hover in a specific area, and then yeah, like typically you'll have a little jump as the weight changes on the drone. So all really interesting stuff from a forensics perspective. Maybe maybe as you roll out your tool, you could have it even like look for suspicious things like the signature of like a drop or like an event that might
Mm.
indicate a drop for people who are looking for that sort of specific incident.
Yeah, yeah, it's all cool stuff, and I'll definitely look into it.
Awesome. Yeah. So we've also got a comment. Wow, this channel is still alive. My friend, we have like 50,000 subscribers. Like, yes, we are absolutely still alive. It's our channel's doing great. So thank you for being on the live. And yes, it is live, as you can now see. So that's most of what we've got for today. If anybody has some questions they want to drop in the live chat specifically about cybersecurity, ethical hacking, our demo went pretty well for today, especially considering I just sent over that drone file like immediately before the stream. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. If you have a DJI drone or another type of drone and people want to get started like working with this kind of thing, what do you think would be the top tool you would recommend to kind of blow their minds about what's being stored on the drone?
Hmm. Honestly, I would recommend the one I was showing, like the SRT flight data viewer.
Hmm.
If you're able to get access to like either or like the flight, like there's DJI flight log text, like specifically for the text file format. There's like parsers on the internet you could use. You're gonna have to be careful because some of them don't work. Or like they charge you like $1,000 to use it. So um, yeah, but there's like a lot of tools out there you could use, and it's really fun once you get into it.
All right, so another question. Do you find cybersecurity to be a lonely field if you are not in the clique?
Mhm.
For me, anyway, I found cybersecurity to be, especially ethical hacking, very strange when I was first getting into it because the only people I knew, the only other hackers I knew were on the internet. So I would follow people on Twitter and maybe correspond with them, but I didn't know anybody in real life who did that until I went to DEF CON and started going to conferences and I guess became part of the clique. And at that point, I started recognizing people at conferences. I would have things to say to people and I would start to have some experience in the community with like who was good to work with and who maybe I should avoid. Like it really did take kind of like going to events and getting to meet people face to face who do the kind of job I wanted to do to stop feeling like it was kind of isolated because there's not a lot of people who have jobs like the jobs that we have. So explaining it, people are like, oh, so you do crime. I was like, no, I don't do crime. But yeah, it's a little bit difficult explaining what you do to people who are just into IT or whose job are to fix things when you're like, hi, I'm here to break things, or my specialty is breaking things or finding things that are broken. I'm like, oh, cool. Do you fix them too? And you're like, no. So that's always an interesting conversation.
Yeah, similar to like Kody's experience. Yeah, I found it very isolating, especially in the beginning, like when you're first like a beginner. I guess like the way I kind of got integrated with the community was through Meetup. I attended one of the Nugget workshops, and then fortunately, I was able to meet Kody and all the other Nugget developers. So that's like how I got more integrated with the community. Also, there's like if you're on Instagram, there's like so many like cybersecurity related people out there. Like a lot of my I was able to make a lot of friends who are like really into cybersecurity, who were just on Instagram. They just like post like pictures of their Flipper Zero or like pictures of their cyber deck, and just like reaching out, like reaching out to those people is super cool. Also, getting involved in like open source development, like making cybersecurity tools isn't too bad. Like as long as you like learn Python or like a scripting language like Golang, um, and then get pretty good at it. You can make like a simple, like I think the first thing I made was like a port scanner with Python. And then just like sharing it with other people, like go on like 5 like cybersecurity related Discord channels. And then like within their thread that's like beginner related, you can just like drop in your link to like a GitHub project you did. And then that's like a good way to like start gaining momentum if you want to get like into development, like start sharing your work and get more integrated with the community, because most likely people are going to have questions for you, and those questions are like a great like spark or like an intro to like a bigger conversation.
So that's such a good point. For one, I remember like the reason I started doing those workshops was like, I really want to meet more people that do hacking in the area. Like I live in Los Angeles. I know there's tons of people around here, but how can I get them to all show up at the same place? So what I found is like when you put on a workshop or when you do something like that, there's typically like one or two people that stick around until the absolute end, and like they have like very specific questions. They're super interested and they're just like, this is what I wanted. Like let's do this again. Like most people, they'll go there, they'll enjoy it, and they'll shake your hand, they'll leave. But some people like stick around at the end, and they're just like, I love this. This is awesome. So if you can do a little workshop, like sharing something, or even just attend one, like I find that a lot of people find each other that way. And Angelina, you were one of those people that stuck around at the end, had tons of questions. You were like, this is what I wanted to find, and it really made me immediately realize that these workshops were a great way to like meet other cybersecurity people. Speaking of, Angelina, do you know of any like workshops that like people could attend in the Southern California area to like
Oh
be
yeah.
possibly exposed to other like hackers or people interested in cybersecurity?
Of course, yeah. So I'm going to be teaching an aerospace cybersecurity workshop at Null Space Labs in July 8th. If anybody wants to attend, it's going to be super casual, like beginner friendly. We're going to be focusing specifically on satellite hacking. Eventually, I want to make this like into like a series where we like hack pretty much anything in space. But we're going to start off with satellites, low hanging fruit. Yeah, so we're just going to be going over like satellite reconnaissance. We're going to be analyzing satellite frequencies. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff. And at the end, you'll be participating in like a small like CTF. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing anybody that wants to join.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And I also have to say, my very first program that I ever did was I was learning Python, and I was like, this is so boring. Can I like plug this beginner Python and parsing and whatever else? Can I like make this more interesting by pulling in real world data? So I went on like opendata.gov, or sorry, data.gov, and then like the city of Los Angeles has their own sub section of that's just city of Los Angeles data provided publicly. So it's like, okay, as a like an OSINT person, I would love to write a little tool that takes a search field and then runs it to the city database and then comes back with like, information about businesses, information about like all sorts of things people might want to research in, one of the biggest cities in the United States. So I made this little tool called LA OSINT, and it got written up by like a number of different people, which is funny because I was literally in my first 3 weeks of learning Python when I made this. Clearly, you do not need to be a master of cybersecurity or of programming languages in order to make a small contribution to the community. Because a lot of OSINT investigators who need to do research in Los Angeles were like, this is so much better than using the clunky like portal that they provide. Like, I can't run searches directly in like the different search engines they provide. So using a command line tool for this was actually awesome and ended up helping some people out. So yeah, you don't need to be a genius or like firmly in the cybersecurity arena in order to start meeting people and making connections.
Yeah.
It is possible to get inside the click without being a master of all things. Quick question was, what is the Discord channel? Nugget.lol, nugget.lol. Thanks for the question. And another question for you is, what can you do with satellite hacking?
Yeah, you can do a lot of things. Well, mostly, I think like the most accessible thing you can do with satellite hacking is like basic like reconnaissance and figuring out information about it. There's like lots of things you can do in regard to like open source intelligence with satellites. I made an entire tool dedicated to satellite reconnaissance and open source intelligence. Um, yeah, I mean, I think the most dangerous thing is like compromising access to it, and that's why we need to make sure like um, satellite cybersecurity is more in focus now, since like that's where we're heading soon. We're going to eventually like civilization is going to become like a spacefaring species, and we're going to have to find a way to make systems in space more secure, because from what I've experienced, like most satellites, except for like Starlink, is like running off of technology from like the 60s. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Another follow-up question. What bands of satellite communication can you hack? Or I mean, I guess at least access.
Yeah, you can use like any like software defined radio, and then search for frequencies that satellites operate off of. I don't have any in mind yet, but it's pretty easy if you set up like an SDR.
And that's leading into our next question. Oops, which jumped and I missed it. There we go. Well, wait, I missed it again. Is it easy to make a homemade antenna, and any experience on doing that?
Yeah. Personally, that's a project I've had in mind, but there has been people who have made like their own rigs in the past. I forgot the name. There was like this one YouTuber who made like this really cool like satellite cyber deck. Yeah, but yeah, definitely you can absolutely make your own like homemade like antenna using like coax or something, and then use that to like analyze satellites.
Okay, I have somebody from the Nullbyte channel here telling me to blink. By the way, I think I'm going to be working at DEF CON, and they asked me if I have a handle that I wanted to put on my goon badge, and I told them I wanted to be Null because so many people know me as Null from Nullbyte. You guys are the Bytes, I'm Null. So if you see me at DEF CON, I may have a badge that just says Null. So yeah, just look forward to that. It's been a while. It's good to see some Bytes in the audience. And a follow-up question, more of a statement, is just Ku band. That's all I got. Yeah,
Okay.
I believe that is a reference to one of the bands our guest desires to hack. Let's see. So yeah, man, we've had a lot of really good questions today. We're coming up on the last couple minutes of the stream, so if you have any other questions related to drone hacking, any questions related to satellite hacking, or any questions related to the nugget.dev website or the Nugget itself, feel free to ask. Otherwise, we're going to be checking in the Discord community, which again is nugget.lol, nugget.lol. So if you have a question that was not answered on the stream, we will be able to answer it next week, where hopefully maybe Angelina, you can come back if you got some more stuff to share, especially if that OSINT tool comes, or sorry, if the satellite tool, no wait, the DJI tool, you're working on so many things. If the DJI tool is finished, even partially, I would love to show off a little bit of what we could retrieve from either my drone or your drone or a drone, provided it doesn't lead back to my house.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to get it out by next week, and we'll see what we can do with it then.
Cool. So Angelina, if people want to follow you, if people want to keep up with your work, which seems to be voluminous lately, you're putting out a lot of stuff. What is the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can visit my website, angelinatsuboi.net, or I've been posting a lot more on Twitter recently, just like providing a little like updates and tidbits into like some of my projects. So I would say like my Twitter would be the best way to figure out some of the projects I've been working on recently.
I have to say, I really like your new avatar with like the two giant screens behind you. It's like,
yeah,
it's like they're in a gang and like they're on your side, you know?
Yeah.
That's cool. It's like your computer friends are going to beat someone up if they're mean to you. It's perfect. Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the stream today. Let me do one last check, see if we've got any. Bro, do more deepfake content. Tons of social engineering going on right now. I would love to. So I recently found that there's a number of different websites that allow you to impersonate celebrity voices, which are actually getting better and better. They're all recognizable, if a little horrifying at the moment. So yeah, we've been doing some social engineering. I'll tell you about it later. Don't worry about it. Oh yeah, so there's some fun stuff that's been going on with social engineering. Obviously, I'm still shocked that we're reporting on cases of like social engineering attacks where people are like misspelling stuff and like sending gibberish and nonsense. I thought we were kind of past that with the invention of ChatGPT and AI to like fix that sort of thing. But yeah, well, I guess we'll see how much AI is going to play a role in phishing and all that kind of stuff coming up pretty soon. So all right. Thank you to everybody on the stream today. Angelina, thank you again for sharing with us your passion for hacking all things that fly and float as well, or orbit, I guess would be more accurate to say.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on the stream.
Cool. So if you're in the audience, make sure to leave more questions on the Discord community. You can leave them on the YouTube channel. We're almost at 50,000 subscribers on Security Forward. So thank you to everybody who has subscribed. We've got plans to hopefully start producing even more content pretty soon. So you can, it is my sincere dream to be able to start making more of this breakout content where maybe Angelina shares like her best demo or something, and we're able to get that as like a singular piece so that everybody who doesn't have the attention span to sit through the whole live stream still gets the benefit of some of these great interviews. So thank you to everybody on the stream. Oh, and per always, make sure to go to varonis.com/Kody, that's Kody, to check out the latest that Varonis is showing off this week. This time at the moment, I believe we're still talking about the research that was discovered both on the Salesforce, and there's another piece of research that just came out. So if you're interested in some juicy security research, make sure to check out the Varonis blog, and you can go to varonis.com/Kody to check that out. And make sure you do that because it supports the stream. It lets them know that you're watching, and we get to spend more time doing the show. So we'll see you all next week. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.